The year was 2004, 18 years ago. About 4 or 5 years before I adopted a life focused on food, so I didn't know anything. And I was actually still in a picky eater phase. I didn't love cold cut sandwiches. The idea of dry turkey meat between 2 dry pieces of bread never quite got me excited as a kid. On the other hand, a hot sandwich was right up my alley. And of course, I loved chicken cutlets. They were the go-to thing for me to add to a sandwich. Now, this was around the end of football season, and I was the captain, small but mighty, and I needed to stay sharp, so I demanded from my mom a steady supply of chicken cutlets be ready at all times. Chicken cutlets are a source of pride in any Italian household. Everyone's cutlets are a little different. I like mine sliced very thin, almost shaved off the top of the breast. I like to cut them thin rather than pound them because I find pounding them beats the meat up too much and they get torn up. I just take a fillet knife and shave very slowly and very carefully as thin as I can. And if you use like a regular organic chicken breast, not these roided up, juiced up mega chickens that some people are accustomed to these days, you should get about 3 to 4 slices per breast, depending on how good you are at slicing them. Then all that's left is to get them breaded, and we use a classic 3-stage breading station. A bowl of seasoned all-purpose flour, a few eggs beaten really well and seasoned, and then a mix of Italian seasoned breadcrumbs and panko breadcrumbs. My mom never used the panko. It's just something I like to do for maximum crunch. I season the chicken lightly right before I add it to the flour. Make sure that it's fully coated in the flour, and then you pat off any excess before adding it to the egg. Once it's in the egg, you gotta get it coated in that egg completely. Make sure there's no little secret hidden pockets of dry spots, and then pull it out, let that excess egg run off, and then into the breadcrumbs. And this is the most vital stage. You could screw it up big time here if you don't adequately bread the chicken. You gotta ensure that there are no wet spots or bare spots present, and to do that, I like to sprinkle the breadcrumbs on top, push it into the chicken, further flattening out the chicken breast if need be, or if they're very thin, being very delicate with it. And then you flip it and you repeat that process until the chicken is fully breaded. That breadcrumb has covered up all egg, it's nice and dry, and the cutlet will fry up nice and crispy. Now, there was a time in recent years that my mom decided to start baking her chicken cutlets, which is honestly, in my opinion, never the move. I don't know why, but when I lived in the house, she knew I liked them fried, so that's why she made them that way. And in a large rimmed saute pan on medium-high heat, we add about a ½ inch of olive oil and allow that to come up to a frying temperature. And once it's shimmering, you can add a test cutlet. Cook for 1 minute, then flip and then baste the paler spots of the chicken with the hot oil. With metal tongs, cook for another minute, then flip and baste with the oil again. And you're gonna repeat this process until the chicken is perfectly golden brown and crispy. Then you're going to remove it from the hot oil and let it rest on a wire rack and season with salt, and then repeat with the rest of the chicken cutlets in batches, no more than 2 or 3 at a time. You never want to overcrowd until all the chicken cutlets are perfectly fried and are ready to be put into a sandwich. Now, with regard to how thin these cutlets are, when it comes to sandwich cutlets, which these are, paper thin is the way to go. If I were to make just like sort of a really big, nice chicken parmesan, I might want these a little thicker, but when I want them layered in a sandwich, I need them thin as paper, just like these are, and these are perfect. Now back to the story. It was December 31st, New Year's Eve, senior year of high school. And of course there was a party that night nearby my house. So one of my degenerate friends was gonna stay over with me that night, and we were just gonna walk over together to the party. Now, early on in the high school days, New Year's Eve was always fun. It was always pretty low key. It was a good New Year's Eve. If you had a place to go, you could get some booze, get wasted, and make out with a crush. That's all you could ask for. But the pressure mounted the older you got, and by senior year, half my grade were degenerates. A lot of the people I knew developed a fond appreciation for nose candy. Unfortunately to me, everyone seemed to overindulge, and thankfully that made me never want to participate. But I always hated it because it made me feel excluded, and it was that night where I started to really feel that. And so of course I got wasted. Ringing in the new year was very anticlimactic, and eventually I just dragged my friend back home, obviously very hungry, and when we got home, we're greeted by a plate of chicken cutlets waiting in the fridge. A glorious sight to behold whenever you're drunk. Mom would also have some really good rolls on hand, and for some reason we always had a ton of very thinly sliced deli pepperoni. I think I liked putting them in sandwiches, but it's gotta be super, super thin. And of course mozzarella, which is every kid's favorite cheese. So in a drunken stupor that night on New Year's Eve, I sliced up some mozzarella. I threw a couple chicken cutlets on top of each other, really nice thin ones, and I sort of mashed it up with the bread to make sure that the bread's gonna reasonably contain this sandwich. Then I shingle on a hefty amount of the thinly sliced pepperoni. I sort of want a bunch of layers stacked throughout, and then I cover that all with the mozzarella. I probably used dry, low moisture mozzarella back in the day, but these days I'm gonna go with the fresh stuff. But this is definitely a drier, cured, fresh mozzarella. Then I pop that under the broiler in the oven. Probably used a microwave back in the day, but the oven's always the best route. And with that heat, melting the cheese underneath, it also makes that pepperoni weep its fat out, dripping down onto the chicken cutlet, immersing it in pepperoni flavor. And once that cheese is perfectly melted, I toss the roll into the toaster, bring it back to life, slice it open. And at this time I had just discovered spicy brown mustard. I had hated yellow mustard up until this point, but spicy brown mustard was a revelation to me. Spicy, acidic, flavorful. And the alcohol in me at the time said throw it on there. So I spread it on both sides of the bread, closed it up, took a bite, and was blown away. My friend, who was in his own universe, was shocked at how good it was. And it was a sandwich I loved so much that to this day, when I know a place has the right cutlets, I'll order it, or when I have the ingredients, I'll whip it together, and I love it as much today as I did back then, and it's a combination I think you'll love. Wait, don't go yet. We have an announcement. I have another Sunday supper coming up this Sunday, July 24th in New York City at the Stand Comedy Club, 4 p.m. Guest chef is going to be Anthony Vitolo from Emilio's Bellato, legendary Italian place in New York City. We're going to be collabing on a menu. Tickets will be down in the description. If you don't know what Sunday supper is, I'm going to leave a video right up here that I made. The series I'm starting that kind of documents the whole process. Links are going to be down in the description. I'd love to have you. If you want to make this recipe, the recipe is going to be down in the description as well. I hope you enjoyed my little story today. That's all that I have today. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care of yourself and go feed yourself. If you don't know what Sunday supper is, I got this video on the screen right now, documented the entire first Sunday supper we ever did, and it's going to show you how much fun we have when you come to my Sunday supper. So if you want tickets, they're down in the description. Thanks for watching.